right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Diary with a Messiah. We are on episode 9, and joining me this week, as he has told me, is really his first podcast type deal, interview deal. He's a very renowned photographer, has done a lot, especially in the world of pro wrestling. He's doing a lot of photography, I believe, still with AEW, as well as around some of the independents. You've done some stuff with my promotion, WrestlePro. So please welcome Speedy.
Hey, how's it going? Good to see you, man.
Hey, you too. Again, I appreciate you jumping on, and again, just want to give back a little bit and see where the conversation goes around photography in the world of professional wrestling. You and I haven't really had a chance to kind of dig into your background a little bit, but did you start doing photography with pro wrestling, or did you start in a different field and then somehow transition into our world?
So I started off with skateboarding, actually. And I grabbed a lot that I learned from skateboarding and I put it into wrestling. But I was like one of those skater kids, like in a neighborhood with a bunch of other skater kids, but I sucked. So instead of like doing cool tricks with like all my friends, I decided to pick up a camera and take pictures of them doing cool stuff. Well, I just got the pictures. But my brother actually, while I was doing skateboarding, he was wrestling. He was doing backyard. And then we eventually found a small independent here in Miami, and we attached to them. And then we found out about a school. So we both went to the school together. I started training to be a referee. He kept going as a wrestler. And then eventually I brought a camera to training and I started taking pictures of training. And that's where I started like kind of learning all the ropes and all the business and stuff like that. But I still kind of incorporated the whole skateboarding idea, everything, like all the ethics that were in skateboarding. I kind of transitioned it to wrestling, and then like it just grew from there. I've been doing that for about 12 years. That's kind of like the footnote type of version of that. But I'm sure we'll break down a little bit more as this goes, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The first time I had met you was doing Blueprint out in Florida. Being involved in wrestling for so many years, I've encountered so many different photographers. But walking into Blueprint and seeing your setup was the first time, I think, on the independents, I think I had ever seen such a massive professional setup. I mean, you had a massive screen, and you had the music going, and you had the layout, and I'm used to doing independents, and I hate to say it, and it's not necessarily negative towards any type of photographers, but a lot of times it's hey, I've got this basic lens, stand up against the wall and take a picture of you, and again, nothing towards them. Everyone's trying to learn their own ropes, things of that nature. But it was the first time on the independents I had ever been, involved with someone doing promotional shots that had your quality, your professionalism, but you came to the table with ideas based on your background. Obviously, we just spoke about with poses, and talk me through your philosophy with that, because a lot of pieces from when I first did photography with you. You were asking me about what my character, what my background is, and it seemed like you were taken to the character and coming up in your own mind with the type of poses or things that you want to do. So I guess within that, what's your philosophy around photography with the different performers and the personalities that everybody has?
Yeah, so to go back to the beginning, you caught me at like, I think, what was that I met you like 3 years ago? Something like
It was like
that?
about 2 years ago, Blueprint, yeah.
Yeah. So I've already been doing it for about 10 years, and I got really serious around like the 5-year mark. 5-year mark, I quit like my retail job and I went into another job, and I was just like, I need something more in the field. So I started getting a little more serious, started traveling a little bit more, started to pick up things from other photographers, and I started studying other photographers, seeing what they were doing. And a lot, as you were saying, we're just doing basic camera up against the wall type thing. And I think that kind of style is still around, and there's a lot of people who are doing really good at it. But there was definitely an absence of like a studio setting. There was only like maybe 2 or 3 in the country that were doing kind of like a studio type setting with like different backdrops and stuff like that. There were some people who were doing like green screen, and that was problematic. So I kind of just figured things out around that. But I definitely wanted to offer something that made wrestlers look like high grade wrestlers. I didn't want that indie feel anymore, even though like it took me a long time to get kind of like that full studio feeling. I wanted to give that feeling like it's not just, you know, just like a bingo hall or a VFW hall type look. I want every company that I go to look as best as possible. So I did that. I didn't only just do studio stuff. Out in the ring, I set up a few lights because lighting in wrestling sucks everywhere.
Yeah.
Unless like you're getting in good money, you know, you're still using the overhead lights, and some of them don't turn on, and it's really spotty, and it's not good for video or photos. So I brought my own lights to make their shows even better. So then I just started getting calls from different promotions and grabbing more information from what they like, from what people like. And then my photos started getting stale. So I started getting the same poses from everybody, the whole like cross arm thing, and like just like really bad faces that made you kind of just look like meh on flyers and stuff, right? Because where do photos go? They go on social media, they go on flyers, they go on posters. They're pretty much the first things that people see when they go to decide if they're going to a show or not. So I wanted photos that popped out. I wanted something that was more, what's the word? I use the word. Engaging. There you go. I wanted pictures that were more engaging. So like reaching out poses and like screaming faces and kind of like the faces that like represent your character. Because what I wanted is people not to see like just like a fighter. I wanted people to see what your character was going to be at the show.
You want
so
the personality to come right through.
Right. Exactly. So like, you know, first time fan in the neighborhood finds out they have a wrestling show, they see a flyer and everybody has the same like face. Like you don't know what anybody is. So bringing out those characters kind of like gives you an idea before you go into a show. Who's who, what's what, are they good guys, bad guys? Are they in between? Right. Who knows? You know? So I wanted to give that feeling to posters, flyers, graphics. Now, more importantly, on social media everywhere, videos and photos and graphics are just like everything that you push to get people to your shows is photos, videos, and graphics. So yeah, I started following fashion, what people were doing in movies, what people were doing in MMA, because MMA is very kind of just like, so I didn't want. So I decided to move away from what MMA was, but still kind of like learn it, so know how to move away from it. Sports photographers, they do a lot of action and stuff, so I try to incorporate action and stuff in there too. So all that, I just wanted to make wrestlers look as good as possible and promotions as good as possible. One, to make my business grow, because that's how, you know, promoters are like, yeah, hey, that looks cool, let me grab him in there. Right. But also because I came up, because I started in wrestling training and picked up a camera and learned to referee and learned to wrestle a little bit. I kind of learned, I kind of got the respect of the wrestlers and wanted them to look better for themselves and not just to bring me money. Like, you know, just get yourself out there. And there's a lot of people who I try to like push even more, like students or like new guys who are struggling. I met a guy in New Jersey who was struggling a lot, and I was just like, I'll help you out and I'll give you some tips on how to do some social media stuff. And he's been growing. He's been doing shows in Georgia, Florida, Alabama, a bunch of other places. And it feels good. It feels good to like help people out and get better and get bigger and all that stuff. So
yeah, I think over the last 2 years there have been some pretty good breakout photographers that have at least been in the East Coast area. I know one gentleman that comes to mind is a gentleman by the name of Brian Kay. Brian Krieger, has done some really good photography, as well as, some others. There was a gentleman, Lyle Williams, who had done a lot of work with CZW, and unfortunately, he passed away. I want to say it may have been a year ago. So there have been some breakout photographers that have been around for a while. And it's good that everyone, at least within the wrestling community, outside of the in-ring piece there. A lot of people that are working together and growing to make, the business better, as a whole. And one thing you mentioned I think is really good is you kind of started in that wrestling realm as a referee. So you kind of grew to understand, a few things in that area. And that's something that's such a big piece that I talk to so many about is learn how to do everything, in the business, whether it's not just in the ring, but outside. Learn how to do the music, learn how to do the lights, do some photography with it too. Just grab a camera, even if it's ringside with your iPhone. We can always use the help, and you never know, someone that, is training with us to be a performer or wants to be a performer may not be the best in-ring performer, but might find that they have a knack for being a photographer, and they can still be involved in the business, in that realm. When you went into the photography piece, did you ever decide of wanting to get back in the ring as a referee, or did you really find your niche as a photographer?
So as I was shooting, I was still training. So I was still training to be referee and learning some wrestling. So I was still actually doing refereeing and stuff here and there. I felt like that was the easiest way to get in. Like, hey, can I take pictures? No, we already have somebody, but I can referee. So there's spots. I was also managing my brother. We had this thing where like he was like this super cocky dude, and I was his personal paparazzi. So I'd come out with a camera, I'd take pictures of him, and like every now and then the referee would be distracted, and I'd come up and pop a flash in the opponent's face, and it's like all that stuff. So even being offering refereeing, managing, all that stuff, kind of gets your foot in the door, kind of gets you moving. A lot of wrestling, as you can probably attest to this. Is that the word? I don't know. I'm gonna use that word. There's not a lot of there's not a lot of money in wrestling, especially at the beginning. So a lot of it has to do with trying to get your foot in the door wherever it is. So my trainer Rusty Brooks, he always taught us to, like, if you want to do something, go to a show, volunteer, set up chairs, set up a ring, and then talk about what you have to offer to this wrestling company and seeing if like you're valuable to them. Eventually, you show enough value, they'll give you money for it. So that's where I learned to be a little bit more well-rounded. And today, if they need a referee somewhere and I go somewhere with my camera and they don't need a cameraman, sure. For the fun of it, sure. If there just happens to be an emergency where one of the referees just couldn't make it, and there's absolutely no referees, I'll put on a shirt and do what I can because I have that skill.
Yeah, I think that's a huge piece too, is being able to be valuable at an event too, not just in one area. And eventually that word gets out, to other places by networking. So, when someone, for example, brings you in as a photographer, they may also know that, hey, this guy's also a referee too. He can do so many other things just besides being a photographer. So now you have even more value to that promotion for that evening.
Exactly. And a lot of it too is kind of like creating bonds between you and the promoter. A lot of people, I've tried to change a lot of ethics in wrestling photography, and a lot of guys back in the day would just show up, never say hi to anybody, take pictures, and then leave. And then you don't really have an impression of anybody, so nobody really remembers you. So I always say get there early, shake hands with everybody, kind of like how you do in a locker room. Offer where you can help. If you're done setting up, offer where you can help. If you're done tearing down, offer where you can help, and all that good stuff. And then you have a good relationship with that promoter. Promoters are your best friends because they give you the money. So unless they're like scumbags, just do everything in your power to become friendly with the promoters and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, when wrestling comes back, who knows if handshakes will come back? So we might just be giving people elbows and, a pound here and there. But no, I agree with you. Even on the photography side or wanting to find a way to get into the business somehow is the same thing if you're an aspiring wrestler that wants to get out there. Sometimes you have to just get in the car and drive, get there early, show up, tell the promoter who you are, and just offer to help. don't go in there thinking, hey, if I just talk to the promoter, I'm going to get a spot on the show. Or, for example, in your opinion, I'll just be able to film the show. Just say, hey, I'm a photographer. I'm looking to get involved in the business somehow. I want to get some experience. If you don't have a photographer, would you mind if I, shoot your show and get your contact information? If you like my work, maybe we can, come to some sort of agreement or some sort of a partnership. I've always tell people too, the answer is always no. So if you don't take a chance and ask, what's the point? So, and especially today's day and age with social media, find out who the promoter is and at least message them prior. At least they know you're coming. So if they have a photographer, you might be able to shoot, from a different angle or a different area, or, maybe that photographer that's hired just to shoot the show doesn't, have the proper equipment to shoot promotional shots backstage. So you can offer your services in that regard as well. Network with the wrestlers in the locker room, get their information, and next thing you know, you took one shot and you've probably built 5 or 10 networking relationships out of taking a chance in one night.
Exactly. Actually, a good example is the show in Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a bucket list item for a lot of people. So
Yeah.
I took a chance. My ex at the time, actually, I was talking to her. I was like, I don't know, it's expensive to just take a risk on it. So she went behind my back and kind of like crowdfunded. So my friends got together and helped me get up there.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a good kind of like a risk to take. Like maybe they'll hire me later. I don't know what it was, but like I had a great time. There was definitely a lot of talented people there. Got to check something off my bucket list, and then Pat invited me again to shoot a Broadway show. So there was there was a little bit of risk and then some benefits. And I should be coming back soon too to work with more of you guys.
Awesome.
And,
We can't wait for
and
that.
then me neither, man. I love it up there. I was actually born in West New York, so it's kind of like a homecoming show.
Yeah, you had mentioned that prior, and it's funny you said it
Mhm.
too, because when you did the Alaska show, and that was, I believe, was last April,
Mhm.
and I've always been taught in the business, should have something added to your repertoire, new gear, new promo shots every like 6 to 7 months, especially as you evolve your look, your body, your character, etc. It's funny, I had actually mentioned to Pat about networking with another photographer that was in the area to come by and do promo shots, and that's what he mentioned. He's like, I appreciate that, but I got Speedy coming. I'm like, there we go. All right, so we're gonna go for it. And the other photographer was a very good photographer. Obviously, no offense to that photographer. Your work, obviously, and just in my opinion, it stands out above anybody else right now that I've seen in the world of wrestling. So if I'm going to go for promo shots and photography, I'm going to go to someone that I think is the best bet. And again, like you said, you took a chance and it turned into a really good networking relationship, because I think, once a lot of our guys that may not have heard of you or done photos with you in Alaska saw the finished product,
Mhm.
everybody's just like, man, because even the last time you were with WrestlePro and Rahway, I think once the photos were in everybody's hands, I think within 7 days, everybody had every single shot that you had taken already plastered over social media. And then at that point, we had people asking us, who took these photos? Who is this person? Even I had gotten hit up by a promoter that I knew out in Jersey and wanted your information. Don't know if we ever contacted you. I gave him your handle on Instagram and told him to hit you up. But that's how it works too. Once people see your product, it's just like a performer. Once people see your work and they think, hey, you know what, that guy would be perfect on my event, or that character would be great here, or that photographer here. And the similarities are literally on point between not just being a performer, but being a photographer as well in the business.
Yeah, I think wrestling in like any aspect of it, a lot of it has to do with how you network. And I'm not the most sociable person, so a lot of it has to come with my work ethic. And that's something I like to share with all the guys who are kind of in the same position. We're not like the most talkative people. If we're ever at a party, I'm probably in the corner somewhere. But like that's the thing that kind of like promoters and clients kind of see. They see work ethic, they see passion, and they see what they're willing to do to get you the product. So I know a lot of wrestlers who had like a killer gimmick, but because they were in such a tiny bubble, they never really went anywhere until they started traveling and showing themselves to other promoters and showing off that ethic. They started to get a little more traction.
Right.
That's something I like to promote too. I like to say like, travel a lot, even on your dime. Like, the world is changing, and sure, there's internet videos and stuff like that that help. But if the internet sees that you're going from one place to another, it looks to them like they're being called everywhere as opposed to them traveling. So the appearance is there, and then the fans see it too.
Right. Perception is always going to be reality. And, it could be a combination of you just taking a chance on yourself, getting in the car and getting out there, and a combination of a promoter reaching out to you and, you coming to an agreement to work with their event. When it comes to doing the photography too, and I'm sure you've probably worked with I guess you've worked with so many different types of personalities, someone that is a performer that is extremely outgoing, that is easy to shoot. But I'm sure you've probably dealt on the flip side with performers that may not have the most outgoing charisma, or maybe the character doesn't necessarily fit their personality that they're trying to get across. On that regard, how do you work with those two personalities, but more so the person that is struggling to find that character? How do you help bring that out when doing the photography?
Well, the outgoing ones are easy. The outgoing ones sometimes, like in AEW, some of the talent just know what they're feeling, and I'm just like, just give me what you're feeling, and they'll give me gold. Sunny Kiss is one of them. Matt Hardy, Sammy Guevara. He's a little awkward, but he knows what he wants in his brain. So I just tell him like, give me what you're feeling, and then they'll just give me a bunch of stuff, and that works. When it comes down to people who are trying to figure out what they're doing, a lot of it's kind of like 50-50. A lot of it, they still don't have anything that's workable. So they have to kind of figure out what's inside of them that they can bring out to an audience. And for that 50%, a lot of it is kind of just like promoters giving them ideas that they don't really kind of like. So they're just going with the flow, trying to figure out what the wrestling thing is, and then eventually their character comes out. For those, I like to just do like generic poses, and then wait for them to kind of bloom into the character that they'll eventually do. For the other 50% who have killer characters, who know this is what they are, but they don't know their poses, I refer to comic books. I refer to movies, movie posters, cosplay. Actually do cosplay wrestling. There's a company down here based out of Florida, but they travel everywhere. It's called, they changed their name. Hold on. The abbreviation is FSCW, but I don't remember the entire thing.
Okay.
They do cosplay wrestling, so it's a good like mix. So the comic book characters, and the wrestlers, and you mix them together and you do poses and stuff like that. So I kind of like got used to grabbing those characters and putting them in wrestlers. A lot of like the super powerful guys, a lot of it I grabbed from like Superman and The Thing, Bane, and a lot of these guys are kind of just like the generic kind of like some of the powerful guys, they like to do like the muscle poses, but they've got muscles, so they don't really need muscle poses.
Right.
A lot of them you just need to have them like just like a regular kind of like a superhero poster-y type thing, and the muscles will show anyway. A lot of the smaller guys, you put them in muscle poses or kind of like fitnessy poses. That's another thing. I study also fitness photos and see what they're doing in the gym when they're like lifting barbells and stuff like that. So that type of stuff, all that stuff, just like combine that in there and put it into my brain library, or sometimes I just have it on my phone and try to walk them through it. And then some guys try to grab those ideas and put them into their whole wrestling thing. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I got one from you in Alaska where, we're doing a bunch of poses and I had the chains, and you had the idea to grab the chains on one end, and once the finished product is out, it literally looked like Spider-Man, like with the web, and it's just like I'm shooting those chains right at you. So I definitely can see where you know, that the creativity on your end comes into play. The other thing I noticed too is how have you, I guess, experimented with lighting and things of that nature? Because I've seen so much of your work, especially now doing a lot of stuff, even with AEW. I'm seeing so much of lighting from you, and that was a thing that I took from when I've done the photography with you that I didn't see a lot from other photographers. You know, do you have a philosophy or an idea behind that, or how you, you know, use lighting to your advantage with photography for wrestlers?
I love a lot of dark kind of isolating photos. So anything that kind of makes a character or a person's features pop with as minimal lighting as possible. I love that because it tells a story with just a little bit of detail. And I forgot the artist. It's not even just photographer. Like I get inspirations from illustrators too. I follow them on Instagram. They do a bunch of minimalist things, but the character is so huge in that tiny detail that I kind of became obsessed with that. And kind of like the general darkness of everything I kind of like. So I try to experiment with different things to do with that idea. It's just darkness, minimalist, but also the opposite of, you know, like colors, like I did last time in Rahway with a few guys. I added a bunch of like gels and stuff like that. But a lot of it just has to do with like, I wonder if this will work. And a lot of it is crap, and like a lot of it is fun things, I guess. I did Fest Wrestling here in Gainesville. Prior to the show, I went to a few thrift shops and I just picked up a bunch of like translucent, colorful things, and I put them in front of the lens, or I put them in front of the lights to see what came out. And that's on my Instagram too. If anybody's watching, my Instagram is speedy.photo. And it's just a few little swipes down, and there's just like different color things, and just experimenting, really, just picking up anything that looks interesting and trying it out. But you know, same thing as everything else. A lot of it is shitty. I don't know if I can curse. A lot of it's not good. A lot of it, yeah. So what you see is this, and then like all this is just trial and error.
Right.
That's it. I think that's most of my career too, is just a lot of trial and error, and then just squeezing out whatever works, basically.
So switching from the promotional photo side to shooting ringside, what are some of your you know, your go-tos for that? Like, there's certain, again, do you have like a certain style that you do, or is there certain mode settings on your camera that you use, or you just go with everything?
A lot of it, well, there's definitely ethics that play around with the settings as well, because the way that you're supposed to move around a ring to make sure that everybody is safe also limits the amount that you can move around. So I learned that with the lighting that I usually bring, unfortunately I couldn't bring it to any of the WrestlePro shows because it's just I don't have that much baggage, but usually I'd set up lights, and that kind of eliminates my need to move around to different lighting situations and all that stuff. But there's sometimes where the lighting sucks and I can't put up any lights, and that's when I move around the most. And then the settings change just knowing photography settings. So like you can't go into wrestling photography without knowing at least something of photography. If you pick up a camera tomorrow, you have to learn what does what, why does it do it? Because wrestling is really fast, as slow as it looks. In person, you know, you have to change settings on a dime. And if you don't know your camera inside and out, then it's not going to be a good time for you. So, but there's definitely an kind of like not a code of ethic, but there's kind of like a guideline. And I've been trying to teach that around all the wrestlers and wrestling photographers that we have. Most of them agree on what to do, what to wear, so you blend into the environment. And a lot of it comes from actually studying WWE photographers and how they have to act behind cameras and stuff like that. I'm fortunate to work with one of the former Impact and WWE photographers in AEW. He taught me a few things on what he's allowed to do, and just like the photos that he captured is amazing. And he's only allowed to like walk within like an 18 square inch area. But like if you're limited to that and not know anything about photography, you're gonna be lost. So yeah, a lot of it has to do with that. I can write a book on like the ethics of what to do and what not to do, but a lot of it has to do with not getting in the way of the videographers, making sure the videographers, yourself, and the wrestlers are safe by kind of anticipating movements in the ring. Like if one guy goes out of the ring and you see another dude running the ropes, there's obviously going to be a dive spot, so move out of the way. There's a few times I've gotten hit. There's an infamous spot in a show here in Tampa where a guy gets thrown from one turnbuckle to the other, and I thought it was just going to land in the turnbuckle, but he goes over the turnbuckle and onto me. So I've learned from there a little tip if anybody's trying to be a photographer and is watching this. A little tip when anybody's going into the turnbuckle, there's two moves you can do. Either go completely behind the turnbuckle, where like you're facing the turnbuckle, a post, or move completely away. That's the two options. You don't stay because people fly over and it's nuts. Unless you're in a match with Phoenix and anything can happen with that crazy dude. So, but yeah, that.
Go ahead.
I know, I was just gonna end it with kind of like that's what it is. Just everything kind of depends on what your limitations are, really, and your knowledge of photography. So.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head too. You have to anticipate, and I also think, and I'm sure probably again your background and at least getting to referee and things of that nature has probably helped your ability when shooting ringside. Just like a good referee will always anticipate when there's a pinfall. A good photographer will always anticipate when something big might be coming up to get that great shot of a facial expression or something going, or again, in your case, getting out of dodge if something's coming the the right way. So I assume you would probably agree that that's a good piece too. But again, part of learning everything in the business kind of all blends itself into making someone an all-around performer, whether they're a photographer or an in-ring performer as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something I always preach is kind of like if you're starting off in wrestling photography, a lot of it is volunteering in the right places. And one of the biggest things I say is go to a school and volunteer there. Offer to take like pictures and of the school and people training and stuff like that, and they'll teach you how the business works in that specific area, what to do, what not to do, where to stand really, because in practice, like things are moving around more than at a wrestling show too. So if you can stay out of the way at practice, you can stay out of the way in a show too. But not only that, when you're volunteering, you're watching them as they're learning where to feed, where to turn, where they're going to run. And then slowly you start to get that eye to what they're going to do during the show. So I always say volunteer for at least 6 months to a year at a school. It doesn't have to be all week. It could be like once a week, twice a month, something like that. But train that eye and train that ethic too. And another thing you pick up is kind of like not just wrestling photography ethics, but you pick up wrestling ethics too at a school. Like depending on the trainer and all that stuff, there are a lot of lazy trainers out there who will just teach you how to do back bumps and then that's it. But there's a lot of there's a lot of thorough trainers, and I'm sure Pat's the trainer there, right?
Pat's the trainer with WrestlePro and Creative Pro.
Awesome. So I'm sure he teaches you guys all sorts of ethics and all that stuff. So like lighting guys, videographers, photographers could benefit from those lectures on what to do, what not to do, who to piss off, who not to piss off. I learned there's a lot of benefit in not pissing off a lot of people.
I always try to tell people, make friends, not enemies.
Right.
And that's because making friends goes a heck of a lot more of a long way in the business than making enemies, because you will meet the same people going up as you will do on the way back down. And sometimes when you're coming back down, you might need a hand. And if you made a mistake with one person that's not willing to lend out their hand to you, it might be the end of you. So, But so transition a little bit too. Once you have all that stuff, and I've seen you do the live editing on Instagram a little bit. What's your go-to for editing? Is there a specific program or multiple programs that you will use for editing your shots? Again, is there a different style or philosophy that you use when editing photos?
Yeah, so I try to stay as journalistic as possible. I don't like to put too much graphic design into my photos. So there's a lot of guys out there who will make amazing photos, but they spend an hour just designing this one photo, taking people out, putting it. I want to get the photos that I took as natural as possible, excuse me, and then put them out so that wrestlers and promoters can start sharing. So definitely a more heavier kind of like photojournalistic, Sports Illustrated type stuff. And their idea is basically to get it out as soon as the photo is taken. For independents, it's not really that big of a pressure, you can have it out the next day or the day after. Some people wait like a week or so. It gets like that sometimes, but it's very important to not over edit photos so it doesn't look cartoony and people believe the photos that are going on. So for that, I use Lightroom from Adobe, and it comes from the same company as Photoshop, which everybody knows Photoshop is. So I shoot in a specific format that allows me to change how lights and colors act in a photo, and then that's super quick. And then if I need to do anything to the photo, if there's anything like inappropriate or something, then I go in and use Photoshop. And then for promos, I do Photoshop for retouching. So that's all the pimples go away and all the wrinkles and stuff. It's usually by request. For AEW, they have me doing a good amount. So like I'll sit here 9 to 5 retouching a lot of photos. But yeah, I use those two programs.
Days if you want, and just get on Snapchat and just add 20,000 filters to your that'll remove all your pimples.
No. No, it's stealing my job, man. I was in the business.
Yeah, I actually just, I invested in, I went from being a PC person into a Mac person just because I want to teach myself a little bit more about Photoshop. And now I'm teaching myself Lightroom and, Final Cut for video editing. So again, being a DIY type person, learn how to do it all yourself. And again, find little ways every now and then to pick up tips and things of nature. Like again, watching, you doing the live editing, on Instagram. Even I just, picked up a few things that you were doing just by watching. Even though I should have been working a little bit that day, but I took a little bit of an extended lunch break and invested in myself a little bit.
That's solid. But I mean, like that, isn't that like all just whatever craft that you have, you try to take as like little breaks here and there and try to just like perfect your craft a little bit. I think that shows a little bit more like you're passionate about what you're doing. You're passionate about your character, so you want to work on it as much as possible.
Well, and not just passionate about the character. I think everyone who wants to get involved in any type of business should be passionate about learning every aspect of that business, because that is going to make you so much more well-rounded, so much more knowledgeable. And you never know, you might be somewhere and you might have a tip for somebody on something. I hate to say it, but you never know where that tip is going to lead you, because that tip might land in the hands of somebody else and they might say, well, who came up with that? And next thing you know, that could lead to something else. So again, it just falls in line with learning how to do everything you can in the business, but investing in yourself in so many other areas to make yourself more well-rounded. And again, being able to give back, into a sport that I've always said, pro wrestling doesn't owe you anything. You owe it to the sport of what can you do to better it, in every aspect. Are there like a couple tips or specific things that you kind of hold near and dear to your heart when it comes to photography that you think every photographer, whether they're wanting to get involved in wrestling or sporting or anything like that, is there like 5 tips that you would say that are most crucial?
Yeah, for just general photography, there's one major thing that somebody taught me earlier on that's really helped me on. It's shooting every day, no matter what. Take a picture with your phone, with GoPro, with a big camera, whatever it is. Just take at least one photo every day, forever, for the rest of your life. And a lot of it doesn't have to be good. It can be really shitty, and then you learn from how bad that photo is to not do that bad photo. Or you learn, let's say, I didn't know that my GoPro couldn't take pictures up close. I didn't know that until this weekend. So now I know something about my GoPro that I have to change to make it better. It's kind of like the same aspect as everything else. You do something forever, you learn what's not good, and then you just not do that thing. Photography is a lot like that. So you do that every day, and you figure out what works and what doesn't, and push that through. Um, I guess another one is just be open to everything. There's a lot of people who are kind of just like, I won't do that photography because I don't know, I just don't like it. I say just like, if you don't like something, do it and figure out why you don't like it, or else you don't know. Maybe that's something you actually really love, but you haven't really discovered yet. Same thing is kind of like, there's a wrestler here, I forgot what his name was or who he was. But he hated deathmatch wrestling for a while. And it's not my thing. I love shooting it because of the chaos and the art behind everything that goes around it. I don't actively chase it, but when it's there, I shoot it. He hated it. And now he does it. And he makes a good amount of money on it. And that's pretty much all he does now. So just try different things. It's like food too. Like, you hate sushi, but you don't know why, try the sushi. If you still hate it, then you're right. If you try it and you loved it, then there you go. You love sushi now, you know?
That's me with sprouts. I can't stand them, but I've had to try them. And
you've had them, right?
And I'm still not a fan.
Yeah, same.
Same.
I'm like, Brussels sprouts, that looks weird. It's like a tiny cabbage. Why would I want to eat tiny cabbage? And then I ate it and I still hate it.
Yeah.
I don't think I have much other tips other than those two. I mean, just be open. Don't be an asshole, I think, is just a general thing. Yeah. That thing you said where like, don't be an asshole to anybody because on your way down, you can meet them on the way.
Do on the way down.
Right. Who told me that? Elijah Burke told me that. And he was where was he? He's helping teaching in the school here, and he said that, and that stuck with me, because you can be in a place where you're just like getting more and more popular, and then everything just seems more the most positive thing. Nothing negative could happen, and then something happens where like the 5 companies around you close down, and now you depend on everybody who you were pooping on. So don't poop on anybody, and they might help you out. Just to be like, you know, not just to save yourself, but just it's good to be a person who's not good.
Right.
That's how double negatives work.
Yeah, and you talk about, you know, opportunities branching from different things. You know, where did the opportunity for you to start shooting for AEW come from?
So this goes back to taking risks that I touched on a little bit. WrestleCade is a convention that happens in North Carolina Thanksgiving weekend.
Brian Hall and Tracy Myers, right?
Yes, wonderful people. Love those guys.
Nice. Worked for them a number of times, and the nicest guys that run a really fantastic tight promotion out in North Carolina.
Yeah, and the fans love their convention, so I have nothing bad to say about them. So one of my photographer buddies, they were growing and they needed somebody else to cover something, so they invited me, and I was kind of on the fence because it's Thanksgiving weekend and I like to spend time with my family. And I spent a lot of time with my ex during that weekend. You know, we go to trips or whatever because everything's cheaper. Black Friday is also tradition, you know, and all that good stuff. But this opportunity landed on my lap, and I was like, maybe I'll take this risk. You know, the drive is a little expensive, and I'm not going to be taking that much. I'm not going to be getting that much money. So I went up after a good couple weeks of debate. I went up. I took the risk. And then I did that whole setup that I usually use that you've seen, you know, the big, all that good stuff. And I was set up in the locker room, so I got everybody who I needed. They gave me a list. I got everybody who I needed, got more than that. And then fast forward a few months, I got a message, a DM from Brandy, and I'm like, no, this is fake. Brandy wouldn't message me, and she wanted to know how much I charged for, you know, a studio session and all that stuff. And I know she frequented a lot in Miami, so I was just like, ooh. But she wanted pictures of AEW, so I was the only one available. I was within their budget. I told my boss directly. I didn't ask him. I told him. It was Thursday. I'm like, I'm taking Thursday off. And he was a mark. He's a promoter for that, actually for that small company where I started. He was the promoter for that, and he became my boss. It was a weird little small thing. Anyway, So I told him like, this is why. And he's like, okay. So I went up, I did that. It was a quick 4 hours, went back home. Then they told me to go to Vegas. So we went to Vegas. I did the shoot after the second rally. And then Cody was just like, I want you at all these. So I was like, okay. So that from that little risk that I took that one Black Friday, Thanksgiving weekend, it grew into now like it's paying my bills basically.
Right.
So now I take risks very seriously. Like I couldn't even see the benefit of it.
Right.
There's no way. It's just going to be a wrestling show. I'm going to meet a few guys. Ultimo Dragon was really cool to shoot, you know. That's possibly on my bucket list. But yeah, I was just like, let me do it and see what comes from it. And that's how I got the mentality for Alaska too. I was like, all right, maybe I'll do it, see what comes from it and all that good stuff. So now everything kind of snowballs, you know. There's obviously risks that never worked out, just like everything else in life.
Right. But I always believe that everything in life happens for a reason too. So, you know, you could decide to take that risk and, you know, you did and it paid off. But the flip side is, what if you didn't take that risk? Then where would you be? So, you know, when I believe in life that everything happens for a reason, you keep taking those risks and eventually something's going to pay off. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times I have taken a risk and I have gone to independent promotion events where, you know, I go just to hang out, help, support, you know, see where I can help, not looking to say, hey, I'm here, put me on the show. Where, you know, I'm just here to support and help. And I could not tell you how many times just from taking that small risk of going where an opportunity has presented itself. And, you know, I've been afforded to do the event, I've networked, and that has led me to other places. But imagine if I didn't, I just decided, you know what, that drive's 8 hours away. I'd rather stay home and play with my cat. You know, so you do have to take risks in anything in life. And again, like you, and anybody wanting to get involved in our world of wrestling, you got to get in the car and you got to take risks. And, you know, you might take 20 risks, but all it takes is one to pay off. And, you know, for example, that one additional risk you took, it paid off.
Right, exactly. I was going to say something, I totally forgot. I blanked out.
Just one question I did have too, because I notice is different too with your photography. Is there a reason behind why you are, when you're shooting shots, that you're always playing music? Is it just for you, just to get people in a good vibe, in a good mood?
Yeah, for several reasons. I actually just learned that trick recently. I was watching some fashion thing and they're like, oh, we gotta take out the audio because of copyrights. I'm like, why? Because they have a boombox playing in there. Or, boombox, listen to me. Jesus. How old are boomboxes, man? These things aren't around anymore.
Maybe the old JVC boombox back from the Attitude Era that the headband
with the two little tape cassette things in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I was like, oh, that's genius. Number one, like I'm not a social guy, so like it cuts off like the awkward silences here and there. Two, I kind of get inspired also by like music videos, and that kind of like jumps into like cinemas and stuff like that. So with certain characters and certain people, I play like dramatic music, or I play like something from like a movie or something, and that gets me in the mentality to give you poses based on what your character is like. So went kind of back in there. Like when I was shooting the first time with Matt Hardy, I listened to classical music for an hour. I guess there's a correlation there, but it fueled me a little bit to get a little more comfortable with who I was shooting at the time. Because who doesn't look up to Matt Hardy when you grew up watching wrestling in the 90s and early 20s, you know?
I agree.
So, but also a lot of guys are very stiff. They're like new guys. They don't know like what to do. And then you play like R&B or you play like Backstreet Boys or something. They get loosey. They all smiles and stuff like that. Yeah. There was one guy who's just like, something I've been adapting was I asked them what kind of music they like, what kind of music gets them in like the gym going mood, or like what they listen to before going to a match. And usually I get the response, anything. And that's when I play the Wiggles. And it all just derails from there. Or yodeling. Yodeling is another one I play. But it gets them, you know, get some giggling, get some smiling, and get some warmed up. They're like, okay, like this dude isn't gonna be like one of these like, okay, do this and do this and that's it, you know. So yeah, I also try to create that kind of like fun environment, so it's not like a drag to go into the studio. Now you go because you want to go, because it's not a drag, so it's not like a chore anymore, stuff like
No,
that. So music really,
yeah, I enjoyed it with you. I mean, again, my character is more of an off the wall, straight and narrow, but here you are, you were playing, I think when I was doing the photos with you, you were playing like 80s soft pop rock, and
yeah.
I was all into it, and I was just that, and that's my era of music anyway. So, that
Mhm.
again, you're loosened up and you're laughing a little bit. It makes wanting to create those photos, I think, that much more special, and it creates a connection between you and the photographer as well.
Right, right, exactly. And I think the connection is important,
Yes.
because there are certain poses where it's kind of like, I'll just reserve it for this promotion, or I'll just reserve it to the guy that I trust. So you become that guy that the wrestler trusts, and then you get those poses, and then those get plastered everywhere, and you get like fans doing like graphics and stuff. It's kind of cool. Um, but yeah, that connection definitely is very important. Yeah.
Well, I guess we're about to wrap up. I don't want to go too long and things of that nature, but I appreciate you sharing your knowledge, telling your story. Where can people locate you? How can people contact you?
So I'm more active on Instagram, and that's at speedy.photo on Instagram. So at speedy.photo. I deleted my Twitter, so but all my links, all my contact information, where you can send emails to, how to DM me for photo shoots and stuff like that. That's all on speedy.photo. So I bought the domain photo, so it's not like speedyphoto.com. It's speedy.photo. So I own that. It's an awesome win for me.
Awesome. I know
So it's on there.
yeah, you had talked also too about a Facebook group that you had started as well. If you can give some information on that too.
Yeah, so that is kind of exclusive to photographers who've been doing wrestling photography for a while. There's actually a kind of like with a requirement that you have to do at least 4 photos, 4 shows. So there's like a commitment. There's not just like, oh, I found wrestling, it's cool, and then you stay in the group forever, and then it's a place where we can show confidently, kind of like projects, so they don't kind of like get out and stuff like that. So if anybody's watching who's a wrestling photographer who's not part of wrestling photography group on Facebook, it's just called Wrestling Photography, and I think it's public to find. But you have to answer a few questions on there. So we try to not have promoters or wrestlers in there, so sorry. But it's just like, we share ideas and stuff like that. We bounce things around. There's a good amount of positive energy in there. We try to keep that going, try to keep each other growing. So try to make it just like wrestling photographers. So if you feel, I'm talking to like everybody else, if you feel like that's you, look us up, Wrestling Photography on Facebook. But if you're trying to learn, I guess, and you're not at that point where you can join that group, send me a message. I answer everybody's questions. I give advice, and all that good stuff. So
Awesome. Well, I greatly appreciate you, joining me with this and sharing some knowledge. And, hopefully we will be crossing paths again very shortly once the world goes back to normal. And
hopefully.
yeah, we'll see where things lie. But, until then, thank everyone for joining me on this episode of Diary with Messiah. Please give a shout out to Speedy. Go follow him on all forms of social media, except Twitter, because you've now deleted your Twitter. So thanks everybody for joining me, and I will see you next time on another episode.